Today we'd like to talk about the topic of power animals, and so that's what we're going to be doing. Melissa, I'm not sure how familiar you are with power animals and what they are, what they do. So if you can tell me, what you know about power animals, and yeah, I guess we can start from there.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because I was thinking about this topic and I wasn't sure if power animals is like specific to shamanism.
Mm. Um, I've never heard that concept outside of shamanic practices, although I've heard it from people who might not know too deeply about the shamanic practices, and saying like their power animal is whatever. And so I don't, as far as like it being a term outside of the shamanic practices, like maybe like that or something, but for like the real knowledge of it, I've only ever heard it used um in the shamanic practices.
Okay. That's what I thought that's where that term comes from, but I definitely have like been taught outside of shamanism ways to like use animals. And then I
Mm.
also feel like in my own practice, I don't necessarily use power animals, but do use animals.
Yeah, yeah, that's the
And I
I would
shouldn't.
say.
I don't mean that
No, I know what you mean.
I'm not using them necessarily, but I'm
You don't have a
interacting
bunch
with
of
them
lab
in an
rats in your
imaginary
basement.
way. I don't know if that sounds any better, but
No, I totally get what you mean. The first thing I would say with power animals is we need to dispel the notion that power animals are animal spirits. Power animals aren't actual animal spirits. What a power animal is a type of disembodied spirit that takes on the animal form and that is there to teach you about powers and capabilities.
of
So
the
that's what a
animal.
power animal is and does. And so,
Wait, of
for
the
me,
animal?
say again.
Oh, it's a disembodied spirit. So a spirit that does not have a body that takes the form of an animal and then teaches you. So like you're
Yes.
interacting with the animal.
You're interacting with a spirit that is disembodied that takes on an animal form.
Oh, that's interesting because I did that because I got this spirit to help me with my health. And I'm like, I can't like interact with you and I can't see you. And then it became like a rainbow snake.
Oh, cool. Nice. Nice. That's awesome. And how what did it specifically help you with, or was it more kind of general?
Yeah, like general. I just use
Mm,
it as like a clean out.
I see. Yeah, I see what you mean. That's pretty cool. Rainbow snake. I love that. I love when rainbow power animals show up. Um, yeah, so a power animal is a disembodied spirit that takes on the form of an animal that is there to teach you about different types of capabilities or powers. And so,
And
uh,
can I interrupt? The
yeah, go ahead.
capabilities and the abilities are have nothing to do with the animal.
No.
Ah, all right. So I totally misunderstood that.
Yeah, I misunderstood that for a while too. So, you could call on, like what you would think like uh the example that comes to mind is the example that I learned in the modern shamanism course, where it's like you think that a spider would be uh mm, good for being able to weave many people together, but you could find out a cow could do the same thing. And so it's not about specifically the form that it takes, it's really about what it teaches you. And so for me, the first power animal that I learned how to use in modern shamanism is principal power animal. And so the principal power animal is that disembodied spirit that, in the way that it's defined as always benevolent. It's defined as always telling you the truth, always honest to you, always a friend, and can find you any type of other power animal that you may need to learn the modern shamanism. And so for me, I've found that the principal power animal is a shapeshifter and can take on many forms. And also too, with it being disembodied, you can also start to have physical objects, in the room or wherever you are, that could be a way to embody then the spirit. Like if you have a hat that's a lion, or if you have a drawing that's a hummingbird, or different types of things where that spirit then can embody that object. And then that's a way that you can begin to build a communication with it.
Mm.
And so the thing that I find to be really important with the relationships to the power animal is to have clear communication. And so when you start to communicate with your principal power animal, you can then start to really work on that. And so with the principal power animal, the definitions of it, as I said, are always truthful and honest and kind to you, and is there as a friend. And so I often, you could think back as the like, animals that you connected with as a child. You had a stuffed animal or something like that. You know, principal power animal. It's actually really interesting. At my job, I go and I go to the time clock and I punch in, and there's a little figurine of Simba hanging out there. And then there's a porcupine too. I was like, that's interesting. Showing me something, principal power animal. Thank you.
Huh.
Get the knocks.
Yeah, so my understanding of them was totally not accurate.
Ah, that's okay. I thought it was that way too. And then I came to learn that it's not an actual animal spirit.
Do you also, though, use animal spirits separately?
You can,
Do you?
sure. Do I?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But I
Huh.
also use the power animals as well.
Yeah. But you could almost, I mean, not that you, I feel like you could just like, well, I mean, you want to see the spirit, or maybe that makes the communication easier.
Sure. In the imagination,
Yeah.
or even visual too. I mean, I have this hat on just for that visual purpose where I could literally see it with my eyes, or like on the screen. But even when I'm not on the screen, it's the feeling of it too. I often wear this when I have to go and be around my family, or if I'm golfing. I like to when I'm
Mm.
golfing, and just like, the feeling of it. I've for my exploration of it, I've been focusing on the ways that I can have clear communication with it. And it's not always in the imagination. Oftentimes, it's just based in feeling, and it's based in just pure knowing that it's there. I invoke it, it shows up. I ask it to, be with me in daily life. It's with me in daily life, but I could always turn to it, be consoled by it, and really, build this relationship like a friend. It's, you know, something truly amazing.
Yeah. I think animal spirits in general could be used the same exact way.
Sure, sure. They could be used in a similar way, but then it would be that animal spirit.
Yeah. But I don't think it has to be like a specific animal. It could, I mean, like
Could be
like this specific dog. It could be like
the
the
dog,
dog spirit.
the dog spirit. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, it could be that way. And also another thing too, I thought to say about power animals is that so one shaman could have a power animal take on the form of a certain animal, and another shaman could have a power animal take on the same form of the same animal, but those two different spirits could be teaching the two different shamans two totally different things.
Well, it would be a different spirit though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even though it's the
Yes.
same animal. It's the
Yes. And
same
so
symbol, but it's a different spirit.
Yes, and so that's the reason, and that's how each shaman could work with spirits that take on the same animal form.
Hmm. Huh. Are they good for like specific things or
Absolutely.
purposes or any purpose?
Well, I find that principal power animal is sort of that one spirit that could bring you any really spirit that you need. So it's like that sort of like one thing that you go to and you ask it like, hey, I need to cultivate the power of forgiveness. Bring me a power animal that is based in forgiveness and that teaches me about forgiveness. And then I would, go into ceremony, and then I would have principal power animal and principal protective power animal go find me that spirit, bring it back to me so that I can then start to work with it and then cultivate the power or capability of forgiveness. And so then I'll call that the principal forgiveness power animal. And it
Hmm.
could work with any kind of uh, you know, powers or capabilities. And I would consider kindness to be a power and capability too. So one of the journeys that I've done was tell my principal power animal and principal protective power animal to go find me a power that I needed, and they came back with principal kindness power animal, and that power animal has been teaching me about kindness ever since. And the same thing with respect. I consider respect to be a power or capability, and same thing, same sort of what's the word that I'm looking for? Same sort of specific word. Damn it,
Awesome.
I'm drawing a blank. No, protocol. Sorry. So it's like
Hmm.
same sort of protocol, and you set up the ceremony very similarly, and you tell principal power animal and principal protective power animal, and then to go and to for that for that case for me, then it was go find me a power animal that teaches me about respect. And so when we came back, and this power animal took on the form of a dragonfly, has been teaching me about respect ever since.
Hmm.
And so I mentioned principal protective power animal. Now, principal protective power animal was the second power animal that I started to work with in modern shamanism, and all modern shamans is as long because they're following the coursework. But and so the second power animal is defined very similarly in that it's defined very similarly to principal power animal, in that principal protective power animal is a type of disembodied spirit that's defined to serve you benevolency. It's completely benevolent. It's always truthful with you. It's always honest with you. And it could bring you any type of protection, and it could teach you about the powers of protection.
Hmm. I need that.
Hmm.
I never like fully understood the protections.
Well, would you like one right now?
Would I like a principal protective
Oh, I'm just saying a protection, and then I
animal?
could. I was just saying like a protection, just a shamanic protection.
Sure.
All right. Well, okay. So if you're not interested in shamanism and you're a listener, this is where you can log off and find another episode that might not be based in this. But okay. So in the imagination, you could either open your eyes or close your eyes. I'm going to close my eyes. And first things first, with the imagination, I'm going to define and for you, perhaps redefine the imagination as a visionary gateway that is a shamanic tool that is used to see into different realms, worlds, and dimensions, that is free of any fantasy or fabrication. So, with that, let's just clear the imagination. and have it be just a blank space where spirits can come to, and where then you can imagine them. And imagine a dome of pure white light forming a perimeter around you. And in that dome of pure white light, imagine a pyramid of pure white light forming a perimeter around you. And so, what these protections do is they don't allow through, it's a barrier. They don't allow through any spirit that is not based in pure white light. So it's layered out. You have the dome, and then you have the pyramid, and it's layered. So even if a spirit that is not based in pure white light, gets through the pyramid, there's the dome, and it's not getting through there. It's not getting through either of them because of the way that it's defined. And it's defined in pure white light, and it's a barrier, and no spirit that's not based in pure white light can get through. And that's a shamanic protection.
But then in like right now, like this waking state, what am I protected from?
Well, with that specifically, anything that's not based in pure white light. So it's really about, what the protection does. That protection specifically creates a barrier around you so that nothing can penetrate that's not a spirit based in pure white light. So the only thing coming through are spirits that are based in pure white light.
But what does that even mean? A spirit that's based in pure white light?
Well, it means that um for the sake of descriptions, there could be spirits that are malevolent by nature and that they're not based in pure white light, and that they could be based in something else. And that there could be spirits that are, dark and try to harm you, and they're not allowed through. They're not allowed through because of the barrier.
Like in an everyday kind of situation.
In an everyday kind of situation,
Yeah.
you're looking for an example.
Yeah. Like what does that then protect against?
Okay, let's say somebody at work comes to you and, they're being all grumpy, and they're a grumpy Gus, and they're, going off the rails about something, and, you have the protection already in place. And so like that, those spirits that are in the space, they're not going to be able to get into your body and then affect you and your psyche and your body.
Mm.
So like, let's say there's a hateful spirit, right? And that hateful spirit might try to get in you. And that hateful spirit, as being something that I wouldn't consider to be based in pure white light. And when you have the dome and the pyramid surrounding you, it's not allowed through those barriers. It's not allowed through those protection. What a protection does is it limits the space. So, as we were saying before, I think in the second podcast, we were talking about protections as limiting the space, but not preventing a dangerous scenario from happening. What it does is it gets you through the other side if you ever have to face one of those dangerous scenarios. And so, that's a way that you could use shamanic protections, and you can really learn from, your principal protective power animal about those things if you know how to invoke it, how to use it, how to communicate with it. And yeah, so if you think about a protection, right, like think about a door lock. That door lock is limiting scenarios from happening. If somebody tries to go and open that door, they're not going to be able to open that door. That's what it's protecting against. It's protecting against people just trying to come in and open the door. That's the protective spirit, or the protective thing, I guess, in like modern nomenclature. It's the thing that's protecting you.
Mm. Mm.
So for everyday use, that's something that I've used quite often. is the dome of pure white light and a pyramid of pure white light, and then I'll surround it by rainbow domes and rainbow pyramids and golden light domes and golden light pyramids and all kinds of different color of light domes and pyramids, and
So
then I
just
just
as
layer
like
it out.
so just as you go about your daily business.
Yeah, I've been working about getting better at not being in a reactionary state, so having those things already in place beforehand. But I haven't quite got the hang of that yet, and I'm still working on, mastering the principle of protection. And so that my goal is for, potentially um, any space that I could foreseeably go into and need it, already have those things in place.
That's what I
Like a
like.
lot.
Set it and forget it shamanism. That's my style.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's been my exploration of it. Those are the understandings that I've found. Um, yeah. Yeah. Especially with with the principal power animal and the principal protective power animal and those spirits, a lot of it for me anyway has been clearing my just clearing my system of communication with them. A lot of times before, I would have blockages within that communication because I expected it to be a certain way.
Yeah.
So it was that expectation that always sort of led me astray,
Yeah.
and made it so that the communication, I wasn't receiving the communication because of my own expectations of what I thought it should or shouldn't look like. And so I find that to be important in shamanism,
That's a
is
good
to,
life lesson in general.
sure, yeah.
Well, I've already learned a lot because I don't use the animals in the way that we've just spoke of. So I'm not, I guess I don't really use them in like a shamanic way, really. Although I guess it is through shamanism that I learned how to work with them, or just not as a power animal.
So you were saying that with animal spirits though, and the rainbow snake, um,
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that was a power animal. I was just like, listen, I can't see you, I can't do this.
how'd that all come about?
Oh, I had a ceremony and asked for a spirit to help me. It was when I was having, my the start of my health issues. So I did do a ceremony, and then I asked for a spirit to help me, and I got it. But right, I was like, I can't. I'm learning more about. I'm sure like there's huge blocks with my communication, definitely based on expectations. But in general, well, like I said, I knew the relationship would not work for me if I couldn't see it, if I couldn't see the spirit. So I asked for it to take on a shape or a form.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's what I got.
And that's when you saw the rainbow snake.
Hmm.
Was it any kind of particular snake or just like the form of a snake? Was there like a specific
Oh yeah,
one
no, it
or?
wasn't a specific snake. And if it was, I didn't know that.
Mm.
It's just like rainbow snake. Not like rainbow anaconda or rainbow boa constrictor.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah. Huh. I was using it and didn't even know it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so, and then after that ceremony, um, in daily life, has that animal showed up for you? Have you been working with it? Have you been building a way to communicate with it?
I mostly just invoke it at night, like when I'm laying in my bed, and I ask
Mm.
it to come and, do its job. I'm My challenge with my shamanic practice is like being consistent with the spirits that I use in terms of like ongoing communication.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why
I
I'm more
noticed.
of like a set it and forget it. Like I'll invoke a spirit, like help me with this, and then I'm just like, all right, it's helping me, and
Yeah.
I gotta go on the trust that I'm being helped.
Mm. Well, yeah, and also too, I mean, that's I work with it in a very similar way, in that it's just through the invocation and then the
Mhm.
knowledge that I invoked it, and then the knowledge that I told it to do something,
Yeah.
and then the knowledge of really what the definition of that spirit is. And so it's only going to be able to do what it's defined as. And so, when I'm asking Principal Power Animal to bring me a spirit that teaches me about the power of kindness, well, I know within the definitions of Principal Power Animal that it's solely based in benevolency, and I know kindness is solely based in benevolency, so it's going to bring me that spirit, and I'm going to work with it, and it's going to teach me, and I'm going to cultivate the power of kindness. And I've been cultivating the power of kindness, and it's not always easy, but it's worth it. And when you do that, you go on a transformative process. So like where you start from to where you are now is not the same thing, and you've completely changed. And with working with spirits that are solely based in benevolency and truthful and honesty, you really start to then embody those qualities that they teach.
Yeah. I have to agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I find that aspect of the shamanism, when you're utilizing those types of knowledge and that wisdom, that's really where the medicine comes in. And that's really where utilizing shamanic knowledge and wisdom for the use of medicine, shamanic medicine, I that's where I find that it really shines.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
I mean, as a medicine, something that is going to get something better. So,
Mm.
I always find that, kindness is something that gets something better. Benevolency is something that gets something better.
I guess I would always just think of the shamanic practice as something that I'm using to make a change for the better.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that's shamanic medicine.
All right. I hear you. I mean, I guess you can use it for like fun as well, but
Sure. I mean, medicine can be fun. Fun medicine.
yeah,
Why
I mean,
not?
as it should be.
Yeah, I mean, what I've been taught in modern shamanism is that medicine can take on an infinite number of forms. And in our Western, model of medicine, we have just a very, very limited, you know, definition of what medicine can be. Medical
Yeah. And
medicine,
like there's gatekeepers.
right? And that's not to say like that's not medicine. It is medicine, and
One
it's
form
really
of medicine.
good. Yeah, and it's really good for, what what it's useful for. It doesn't have all of the answers. I don't think it has all of the answers as far as psychiatry goes, but like it definitely has some of the answers with antibiotics. I found that out
Yeah, I
through
mean,
my
it has its
experience.
pros and cons, pluses
Right,
and minuses, things it's very good for, things it's not so good for.
right, right.
I mean,
And
and
so,
even talking about the shamanism, I know there's certain things that like a shaman would tell you, like go get Western medicine for that.
yeah, right. Like if you if you go to a shaman with like a staph infection and they don't have an antibiotic to give
Yeah.
you, if that shaman says anything other than, hey, go get go to the medical facility and tell them you got a staph infection and get some medicine for that there. Well, that shaman tells you anything other than that, I wouldn't be listening to that shaman for very long.
Yeah, it definitely has its usefulness.
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
guess both things have like, I guess, a
Sure,
limitations.
sure. Even the power animals too, they have their limitations. They're only going to do what they're defined to do.
Mm.
If it's out of the definition, then it's not going to be able to do that. That goes the same thing really with any spirit, anything. If you don't, if you're asking for something that is not based in its definition to do, it just can't do it.
Yeah, that was like my high, like my, I don't know if hanging up is the right word, but I think I tripped myself up for like when I started my practice. I'm like, how am I going to know like what I actually truly want and like what the definition really is when like the word is so abstract from like the actual intention. I mean, not always in all situations, but I think I like put that roadblock up for
The,
myself.
the word, do you
Like
mean
the
the word
words
want?
that like you're invoking. Yeah, or like maybe the thing that I am asking for isn't even actually what I really want.
Now,
I mean,
in
in terms of
that,
like, I want to be more kind, you know, then I would be like, I invoke this spirit that serves my highest self that could teach me how to be more kind. And that's kind of straightforward. I
yeah,
can't give a good example of like what I
you
was
know,
thinking of at the time. But
I
it
get it.
was also many, many, many years ago. So I mean, I was a totally different person then as I am now. So I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think oftentimes too, even for me, in the beginning of it, you could trip yourself up with semantics and you can, get solely based in, the words that you're using. And um, yeah, it is about the intent and, matching your words because your words have meaning with your intent. And so, that was just a beautiful invocation that you just made. You invoke a spirit that served your highest self to help you to be kind. And so, a spirit that serves the highest self is going to be kind,
Mm,
you know?
yeah. I suppose maybe there was just like a lack of trust in myself, which I would never have even been able to say that it existed at that point in time, which then translates to like a lack of trust in my shamanism
Mm,
practice.
yeah, it's the doubt. It's the doubt
Yeah.
that brings down the shaman, but with you just with you just saying like that that invocation that you just said, I find that to be an invocation that had deep meaning to it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, in the oftentimes what I do is an invocation that I was taught in modern shamanism of I invoke the spirits that serve the highest self that help transform the space. In the beginning it goes a little different. So it's I invoke the spirits that help transform the space. That's one set of spirits. And then I invoke the spirits that serve the highest self that help transform the space. Now that's two sets of spirits that are in the space that are helping to transform the space. And I like the simplicity of it. I don't, I mean, I don't need to get any more complicated than that. As long as it has meaning to me and it's what I'm intending, then that's good enough by me. Have you found something similar?
Um, I mean, that's basically how I invoke stuff. How I invoke spirits. I just invoke the spirit that serves my highest self that I need or want to XYZ.
Yeah. And then it's about, knowing that you invoked it. And so that's already done.
Yeah.
So you
So
don't
I've
even have
gotten
to
to that
be,
understanding that once I say it, it happens. So I just have to believe that or and trust in that.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you
and then the
know it.
rest is just
You know it. You know you just invoked it, so you know it beyond the belief of it, and you know it beyond beyond the doubt of it. It's a singularity. That's what you did. You invoked a spirit that served your highest self, that helps you learn about kindness. So you know it beyond the belief of spirits, beyond the doubt that you could even do it. You already did it.
yeah. Yeah, I
It's an
don't
amazing
know what
thing.
that was about. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say now. Like I said, it was a really long time ago.
I could say for me um it the doubt where it has shown up for me is um thinking that I can't do it, and that learning and even using the term spirits and all of that just being pretty foreign or out there or however you call it, and just all of that. But the more that I've worked with it, the more understandings that I've got, the more that I continue to learn and to know, and the more that I know, uh, the more that the doubt gets dispelled.
Yeah, I think the more practice. I think the thing that was most helpful for me, because I still feel like my doubt is um, maybe like stems from, and this is just doubt I have in general about like my receptivity. So not just like in shamanism, but just to like life in general. But yeah, mostly probably does affect like the shamanic practice. Um, but something that was very helpful with this was so probably when I did start practicing shamanism, I was, it was before like embodiment was a big term, or before like I learned about breath work. It was before like I started working with some, some teachers that helped me to like feel more in my body. So I think I was like pretty disconnected from my body and up in my head. And so now I feel, or I think that the practice is easier because I have more access to like feelings and sensations in my body, and I understand more that, right, it's not just like this communication that comes in the form of like thoughts in the head or like hearing something or seeing something, but it could come in the form of like sensing something in the body. So I think
Yeah,
that was a big kind of like turning point.
yeah, absolutely. And you saying that made me think of a communication that I've had with my principal power animal. Um, and principal protective power animal, and my guardian angel, and my principal protective guide, and just sort of my core group, and especially the protectors, in that training me to, when there's danger around, to have there be a sensation in my body that I can recognize. So a pinch on the shoulder, or if I'm getting fatigued, then perhaps like very mild muscle spasms or something like that, and feeling it in the body, rather than just being so caught up in my head about what's going on, because I definitely have had that too, where I'm just so thought based in the head and disconnected from the body. And yeah, yeah, and through similar practices, um and definitely the same practices too, that I know that we've both been through, and um that's helped me yeah, connect to the body, and has actually helped me to in return, and I'm just coming to this realization now, connect with my core guides, which are included in that, which are my principal power animals.
Yeah, that's super helpful to know what's going on in your body.
Yeah, yeah, it is for sure. to just be able to tell, how you're feeling.
Yeah. And even saying that, I mean, I don't know if you could even always know what's going on, but just to be aware of, right, like the sensations, the feelings, the emotions.
Yeah, and this conversation's inspiring me to communicate with my core guides to be able to understand further about feeling. I think the one thing the one thing that I've I have been hung up on is like calling feelings good or bad or even putting words around them.
Mm,
And I know that's detracted from actual feeling for me.
yeah. I mean, yeah, some are uncomfortable and some are pleasant. I think a lot of people are hung up on that though. It's like the like whole low vibe, high vibe conversation,
Mm,
you
yeah.
know. Like none of them are bad or wrong. Of course, like I don't want to spend a lot of time with some of them, but I think there's, you know, valuable information from all of the sensations.
Yeah.
You know, our bodies aren't just like they're not just the meat suits.
Yeah, we're not just meat suits. I think we're a
No.
bit more complicated than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly interesting. I've got my work cut out for me to do because that just brings up like this whole conversation has definitely brought up a few things that I know that I'd like to work on,
Just
seeing how
add
it
it to the
goes.
list.
Yeah, just add it to the list, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Getting
I
more
think I'm
connected with my
always
body.
working on feeling more in my body. It's definitely a work in progress. And I've
Have
had a
you
lot of teachers that say, like, that, you know, the body moves slowly and kind of on its own time, in its own time frame.
have you ever thought about asking that snake, the rainbow snake, to help you um with what you were just saying as far as deepening the knowledge and the connection with the body?
No, but that would be a good idea. And also just to know like what I need to do. Because I've been running into that problem because I've kind of like turned away from Western medicine and then, but like, who do you actually turn towards?
Mm,
And not knowing, not like I necessarily 100% trust doctors, but I do feel like there's that kind of like paradigm almost where there was an unspeakable trust in doctors, or you know, they're like here and you're there, something like that.
mhm,
But
mhm.
so, you know, when you have a condition that is typically treated by Western medicine and maybe in some cases is best served by Western medicine, depending on what it is. Yeah, it's like, who do you turn to? Um, so yeah, I'm actually kind of in that situation right now. Um, yeah, and I would love to know. That is actually one of my intentions for, I was just telling you I was writing my intentions for when I go to Peru to drink ayahuasca, that I want to know like what is it that I like specifically need to do for my body to be like at its healthiest, or like on the path to it becoming like the healthiest that it can be. So yeah, that's a good idea actually to use.
Yeah, those are some legit intentions.
Yeah. Because also, so it's interesting because before I drank ayahuasca ever, I was seeing a therapist and she's like, all the answers are inside of you. It's like, oh, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. But then, so like, right, there's this thing with the health that like someone still does know better. But I feel like in a way, maybe it's hard to lose that or not believe that. I mean, because there are certainly people that could, like you could take lots of tests and people could like guide you as to what these tests mean and this is what you should do. But I guess like, yeah, like ultimately it's, is that in alignment with what you want to be doing or what you feel like you should be doing or what you feel like is best for you? I don't know if I'm just kind of rambling or if that all
No,
makes
you're not
sense.
rambling. No, keep going with that.
Yeah, no,
If you have anything more to say.
I don't know if I do. Well, yeah, I guess it's just like a knowing between like who does know best for your body. I guess that's like when you use people as guides, right? And you just get the information they have and then can offer you, but yet still you have to make your own decision
Yeah.
which direction to go. Maybe not just like blindly like this person said that. Okay.
As far as feeling, you mentioned that. I think really, well, I know you're really the only one who knows really how you feel. Same, for me, I'm the only one who knows really the way I feel. And then that could be said for, the 8 billion people on the planet, all of them only know how they feel. And, when it comes to, seeking a professional who has knowledge and who has seen many cases of it, and then they can impart with you that knowledge. I think it's important, as you were saying, as far as like as far as the doctor being put on a pedestal or something like that, it's important not to do that and just to see them as people and that they have a specific role and a specific job to do, and that they don't have all the answers. Western medicine doesn't have all of the answers, and no one really has all of the answers. And we've amassed in medical knowledge quite a lot, and the same thing goes for shamanism too. Shamanism doesn't have all the answers, and no one shaman has all the answers. They're people who have knowledge and
Yeah.
understandings, and the ones who are really for the betterment of people, the ones who would be considered the shamanic medicine practitioners, just the people who are there for the benefit of people. and and yeah, I think it's really about getting the information and then deciding what to do based on that information that
Yeah.
professionals could give you that you might otherwise um, might otherwise not.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess I was like in a situation where I was feeling as if I didn't know who to turn to with my questions. And I think too, because what I am doing is not necessarily unconventional, but it's not the traditional standard treatment course. So it feels like almost, yeah, like I almost do want someone to say, this is what you should be doing, mostly just because the long term outcome that I want. But no one could ever tell me that. And I also realized that even if I did go the traditional route, that doesn't actually mean that I'm getting the outcome that I ultimately desire.
Sure, sure. I mean, you know, uh, it's just it's always a question of if something doesn't work for someone, what caused it not to work and why didn't it work. I mean, not all treatments work for everyone.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes with shamanism too. It doesn't work for everyone. It's not for everyone. And so, it's helps some people, and for some people, it doesn't really have an effect on. And uh there's always just a question then after that.
Yeah. I mean, I think also what came to my mind is one, going back to that, like you do know best for yourself, or maybe, with gathering the information, it does come down to a matter of just trusting yourself. Like, what does feel best for me? What is most in alignment with what I value and what I believe. And then also knowing that, right, we're not the sole creator of life. It's not
Right.
just like it, we're not like just mechanist. How do you say it? I don't know if I'm saying that word right. Like, do you know what I mean? We're not
Yeah.
just like the individual elements that you could put together and then like make a car. Ta-da! It works, right? Like, that's not what
Yeah.
life is. We can't reduce it to, just the parts and the pieces. There's something else that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And, um, I just thought too, you could totally, use your principal guide and your principal power animals to help guide you to, really the best decision with the information that you're given.
Mm,
And I know that those spirits really would, help you with that just based on their definitions.
yeah, I mean, maybe I really should be doing that. Well, I actually did make a decision to work with this one doctor, so I think that feels I feel, confident that this lady has some information that she could guide me right towards that path of better health.
Mm, yeah.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
think all of the other, like adding the shamanism onto that would be helpful because I don't think it is like such a clear,
No, and
like
I
any
mean if
path, right? That isn't isn't already forged. It's definitely not one that is. Like,
yeah,
how
and
does
it
one body become in optimal health?
could be through a myriad of different types of things.
Yeah. And that's what I'm really learning. That's what I've learned from this doctor so far is that, like, a lot, I think, of what Western medicine would have you believe. And not only Western medicine, I was thinking of this too in terms of like dieting, right? It really is like calories in, calories out. And that's like the equation that people get for like losing weight. When in
Yeah. I
actuality,
think about this so much.
in actuality, it's like, how much did you sleep? How much water did you drink? What are your hormones like? What is your digestion like? Like that
Yeah.
formula is like such bullshit.
Well,
Like yet
yeah,
there's
it
so much
definitely
that's based on it.
it has its shortcomings for sure because like if you think about it, right? Like let's say I don't know, if someone's trying to lose weight, right? And they're thinking in only terms of calorie in or calorie out. Um and they're just caught within that like short little bubble. And they go and they, only eat a Snickers bar that day, but they go burn 1,000 calories on the treadmill. That's not going to have a good effect on you, like, especially if you do that quite often, right? And
Yeah, but I think that's even a totally different thing than just the losing weight. Like you're talking about, I mean, how does that nutritional value and that Snickers affect
yeah, yes,
your whole entire
your whole
body?
body, right? But if you're only thinking about it in terms of calorie in and calorie out, and you're like, well, I burned that 1,000 calories, like, I'm all right. A lot
Yeah.
of people think that way.
No, I
I see that
know.
quite often. I've I mean, professionally, I used to be a fitness trainer, and I've seen people who think I hear people like that often who just like think in terms of calorie in and calorie out, like you said. Yeah, but to dive into that further because I just love this subject. But counting calories is actually really useful in terms of if you are active, like if you're super active, or even if you're not, it doesn't really matter. Just for me, I'm a very active person. And so knowing the amount of calories that I burn per day is actually really useful for me in terms of how much I need to eat in order to recover. But I would also couple that with eating foods that are healthy for you and getting in those calories that way. So like as I said, not doing the example earlier of like eating the 1,200 calorie Snicker bar and then go hopping on the treadmill for an hour, but rather using it as just a measuring tool.
Yeah, I think my point was that, right, I'm not saying calories don't exist.
No, I know.
I'm just saying I forget like what made me think of this. It's just like the components. It's almost like what I said before, like the components, it's not just the components. We just can't be broken down into these parts and say they work this way with nothing else taking into consideration. I forget why I made this point.
You were saying about the doctor that you went to see.
Oh, how there's a lot more to health than, I mean, than just like the tests that they give you at the, yeah, like there's just so much more that constitutes our health than, and we've already talked about this, right? Than just like the foods you eat. So it's almost just like breaking it down into these very simplistic parts when in actuality it's a much more complex and nuanced topic, almost like you're saying with that, you know, you could, it's kind of getting at it a different way. I don't think it's exactly the same thing, but if you know you're trying to lose weight, why would you just be eating a Snickers bar? But I just more so meant there really is so much more that goes into like what your weight is, not just the calories you consume and the calories you burn. It does have a lot to
Yes.
do with like the other things in your metabolism or your hormones. It's just so much. And it really goes back to us thinking, right, like our bodies are just like these machines. Like if I put X amount of gas in my car, I could drive X amount of miles. But like we don't work that way.
Right. Right. The body's not that way at all. I used to think it was, and then I realized that it wasn't just through exhaustion and burnout. But you were saying with being healthy, there's being many factors, not just what you're eating, but also what you're eating. What would you say like the key factors of being healthy are? If you had to give it a like a not like a hierarchy. I'm not saying give it a hierarchy. I'm just saying like of like what are the key factors? What are the areas
Well, I mean, I
you
think
want?
food is a huge part of it.
I
Um,
agree.
so like what I learned from Dr. Jen, she talks about like primary and secondary nutrition. So I don't even think food's your primary. I think that like everything that you take in is like your primary nutrition. So like what are you watching? What are you listening to? Who are you hanging out with? That kind of stuff. Like what are you reading? Those kinds of things. I think like your habits are a pretty big deal. You know, like being active, um, things like phone use, computer use, stuff like that. Stress, I think stress and sleep too are two really big things. And like, how are you managing the stress?
Mm,
And then I think the sleep is really important too because it's very restorative. And both of those things are really, the stress and the sleep impact your immune system a lot,
yeah.
which is a big part of being healthy. So I mean, it is a lot of what you consume, but it's not just right like the food. It's also like the way you consume your food too. Like she talks about if you're not like actually sitting and chewing and paying attention to your eating, that you're not like digesting your food properly. So you're
Mm,
not even getting the benefits from the food that you're eating.
hmm. Yeah, that's amazing to think about it like that. And yeah, I like what you're saying about stress, it just stress and anxiety. I definitely uh I think that I'd like to get better at managing those things because I notice that stress and anxiety affects my digestion,
Yeah.
like not digesting foods uh, all the way.
Yeah, and the digestion is a big part of it too, because the harder your body has to work to digest its food, that like does affect your immune system too.
Yeah,
And
and
also the harder your body, like the less things you eat that, or the more things you eat that are not food, the harder your body has to work to
That's
digest.
another.
And
That's
not
another.
like I'm not talking about rocks, but like
I know what you mean.
in your
Yeah.
packaged foods and all the chemicals that we eat.
Yeah, that's just another thing that I gotta bring to my principal power animal
Yeah,
to help
it's
me
a
with.
lot. It's at first it was like overwhelming when I started thinking about it, but then it became more like empowering because there are all these decisions that you can make towards being healthier.
Yeah. Yeah. What's one thing that you do to manage stress? Something practical.
Well, I started meditating, and so I think the meditating is helpful because it does relax you like in the moment. And then it is also helpful because you then have like the ability in your regular day to be more aware of like what you're thinking and what you're feeling and stuff like that. So then that could kind of like cut off the stress at the starting point, before
Yeah.
things get out of hand.
Yeah.
Or
I've been
before your thoughts are like, having you spin out on whatever it may be. So interesting. I the other day said to Louie, I'm like, I realized I worry all the time. I thought I didn't worry a lot. But then I realized like the things I've been thinking recently, and they're mostly just like worrying thoughts.
yeah. Yeah. And it's have you ever heard of like the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous
Yeah.
system? I may be saying that wrong.
Well,
But
no,
yeah,
they're both parts of your nervous system.
yeah, I've been asking the question a lot of, once I get triggered into the sympathetic, how do you say it?
Yeah, sympathetic and
Oh,
parasympathetic.
sympathetic. Yeah, when I get triggered into the sympathetic nervous system, how do I then get out of that and then trigger the parasympathetic nervous
Yeah. So
system?
when you exhale, that triggers the relaxing one. So
Hmm.
so I think it's important to breathe not only like in the moment, but practice that like outside of the times that you are triggered. That way your nervous system is like getting used to that state and not just like when it's activated, bringing it down, but like, oh, all right, this feels good. I like this setting because it
Yeah.
feels so much better to be in that zone
Slower breaths too, right?
window of
Have you?
tolerance. Yeah, it's like the sigh breath. You feel it. And
Uh,
really any exhalation is
yeah.
triggering that is triggering the slow down part of the nervous system. And then the inhalation is triggering the let's go. Um so yeah, or also just long exhales.
Hmm. I noticed with the sigh breath too, that one I'm not holding on to tension when I do that. I
Yeah,
let go of
I
tension.
mean you're letting go. Yeah, so I think that practice in general helps to kind of like widen. It's called your window of tolerance. So that's your basically your nervous system's ability to be with stimuli that are slow, medium, and fast. And then
Yeah.
like so then on either side of that, it's going to be like that fight or flight response, which most people I think get triggered into that. But then there's also the freeze.
Yeah, the fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah. So it's like fight, flight, or flee, freeze.
Yeah, I look at that as like a whole state, and it's like like when I find myself in that, how do I recognize it? Because like oftentimes like it might be difficult. It's difficult for me to even be able to like recognize that I'm in it, and it could be like things that like I wouldn't normally think of, but like the modern world is it is the way it is. So if like it's things around money and it's like my financial livelihood and something affects that, it could like really put me in that fight, flight, or freeze state. And
Yeah,
so it's,
that makes
you
sense.
know, how do I recognize it when I'm in that state? And then how do I trigger then getting out of that state and into a more relaxed state, into a more receptive state, and then utilizing the parasympathetic nervous system. Um,
Yeah. So, like, part of a breath practice is paying attention to your breath. So when you're not breathing, or if you're shallowly breathing, or if you're kind of like breathing um like more so up here, those could be some signs. I think too, like how your body's feeling, like when you're really tensed,
mm, yeah.
like how you're bracing yourself, like a
Mm,
faster heartbeat. Those are
yeah.
some good signs.
Yeah. The faster heartbeat is with the sympathetic when it like increases.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All
So
the things that don't feel good, basically.
you know what else too? I think there's something to this. Is with martial arts, when I go to jujitsu and I'm sparring with people, by the time I'm done, I'm just like spent and like my
Mm,
heart rate is jacked up. It was like actually going through that, but having it be with like in a safe space and
mm.
then um coming out of it. I feel like that's benefited me for sure.
Well, I think that would be like what you're talking about. Like you're purposefully putting yourself in that like that state, and
Yeah.
then practice actively coming out of it. I think too, like when you notice you're in it, you don't have to even, I think even noticing that you're in that state and then just consciously doing something different is helpful to get out of it. And
Mhm.
actually, so I think even if you don't do anything to get out of it, it's still helpful because you're just realizing it. Because, right, everything is going to be, small little steps that are helpful. So that was actually one thing that I learned. Like, so when someone in my breathwork training, that like if someone is triggered, you might not even have the capacity to change in that moment, but also even just being conscious that you have a choice is really super helpful. Like just knowing that you have the choice and you don't even have to choose to do the thing that would, bring you into a less triggered state, but just knowing that's an option for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually
Absolutely.
where I use animals a lot. Because
I was just thinking about that.
yeah, because you could think, and then I learned this from my teacher, Rachel Maddock. So this is how I use them a lot. Because then you could think of like, what animal does it feel like in my body right now?
That's interesting.
And then
I
like,
was
does that animal want to express itself?
That's really interesting. I was thinking
Mhm.
about it in terms of um calling on my principal power animal and my core group of guides to when I'm in that state to be able to help guide me to the awareness that I'm in that state and then help guide me out of it.
Mm,
So that's something I just thought that would be interesting to work on.
yeah,
What I'm planning on doing, utilizing what's coming up in this conversation to help me grow and transform and manage stress.
yeah, that's a big deal, managing stress. I think too, like a lot of screen time is not good for stress, just because of like the hormones that it releases.
Mm,
I'm not
yeah.
100% sure on that.
I mean, hey, I don't think that's too far fetched.
But I've just been learning a little bit about it, so I'm not like certain.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem too far fetched for me to wrap my head around. Yeah. Well, Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's about that time.
Yeah. Yeah, it is five. It's five. We said 4:30, but our
Wow.
conversation
All
just
right.
evolving and transforming. And yeah, I'm grateful for it because it brought up many areas that I would like to work on, especially um, in terms of utilizing my power animals and my core group of guides to be able to help me and function better.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same. Use my shamanism to fulfill my intentions, which I guess that's what it's there for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I definitely got a few things to ask you then when we're done with the conversation.
All right, well,
Um,
I'm here. All right. Well, thank you for checking out our podcast and being here with us. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation. I know that I learned a lot, as Nick shared, so did he. And stay tuned for our next episode.
yep, it's gonna be an awesome one.
Okay, bye.